Hey houseplant friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashley and I make houseplant videos on youtube.com/@plantingashley. And because I make YouTube videos on youtube.com/plantingashley, I am going to make a YouTube video right now. Welcome. I am drinking some tea here. You know what that means. It's time. It's been a year since the last installment. It's been a year and a half since the last installment, but today we are going to be bringing back the PlanTEA series.
Oh no!
My mom's here, by the way.
Give me some tea.
Which is where I talk about the plant community and some of the plant drama in a very biased way. There's unbiased reporters out there that are like proud of being unbiased, and I am proudly biased. I proudly have opinions and I will proudly tell them to you. I'm talking about something that's really interesting today to me personally. I'm gonna be talking about Facebook plant selling, Etsy plant selling, and store plant selling, and the different pricing microbiomes that have developed, and I'm gonna tell you why I think that they've developed. I have been in the plant community now for 4.5 years. I've been making videos for about 4. I feel like I've been here long enough to have had a pretty decent understanding about where we're at. I was lucky to get into plants before the expensive boom, during the entire expensive boom, and now we are in the first plant depreciation in like 8 or 9 years. And I have a lot to say about it. Before we get started, thank you so much to Zimp for sponsoring this video. Zimp is where I get all of my glasses. This is the Aphrodite pair. And if you are interested in this or seeing all of my favorite glasses listed on one page, you can go to the link at the top of my description in the comment section, and also in my link tree, which you can find on any of my social medias. And make sure you use code Ashley at checkout to get 50% off frames and 20% off lenses. I have 2 discount codes. You're welcome. Whichever one you want, you're totally welcome to use. But yeah, this is Aphrodite and it is my favorite pair of glasses. I hope you like them. And let's go ahead and jump into the video. In 2019 through 2021 and a half to what I call the late end of 2021 and early part of 2022, we had incredible pricing consistency from 2019 to 2022. This was really great for sellers because everyone kind of sold plants for the same price. Buyers knew exactly what to expect. It didn't really matter where you went, even though things were more expensive. Everyone pretty much knew to expect. Albos sell from every single seller in the world for about $120 a leaf. For a while, it was like $300 to $400 a leaf, which was crazy considering now they're like $20 to $30 a leaf. Because of this general pricing consistency, everyone kind of could do the same thing. And when the plants first started getting popular, it was actually before probably most of your favorite plant businesses existed, or they were just starting out. There's so many plant stores that came up from people falling in love with plants during this time, which was the pandemic, COVID time, pre-pandemic, and then during pandemic. There wasn't a whole lot of sellers in comparison to how many there are now. The pricing was very consistent for everyone. The outlier of this was private sellers. Private sellers were usually able to sell things for even more expensive than the rest of everyone. That is just because of the fact that they had amassed a private audience of people that knew exactly what to expect from them. It's kind of why I will always buy from Botanicas, even though Botanicas is just more expensive to get shipping from, because I know for a fact my plant will arrive alive, and if it doesn't, I know for a fact they will replace it. They're just amazing. I've met Anya and David in person like 3 or 4 times. I've been to their place 3 times at least. This is what I'm trying to say. It's kind of like people will get this brand loyalty for some of their favorite plant sellers. So during this time period, which we'll just call the big wave, from 2019 to like 2021 and a half to 2022, early 2022. We're gonna call that the big wave because we had this massive influx of new plant people into the community, including me. I came directly before the big wave. I was like one of the last people to get on the train right before it left the station. Everyone was just like fighting for their lives to get on the plant train. There was very small pricing variability. If something was $100 at one place, it would probably be no more than $115 at another place, or $95 at another. It was very like everything was in the same realm. Sometimes you would have sellers that wouldn't know what other places were selling it for because maybe they didn't check. You would have some very few of the time plant sellers sell things for really cheap on accident, and that would always change because people would always tell them like, you're selling this for way too cheap. You guys, pricing was so consistent that a lot of places stopped pricing their plants on the plants, and when you would get to checkout, the seller would just look at Etsy, eBay, quickly scan to see what everyone else was selling at, and then sell it for that. It was pretty interesting, especially if you would buy from private sellers, they would always do this. It's like, hold on, let me go check the prices real quick. Like they're checking a stock market. It was so unreal. Halfway through 2022, the plant prices started declining for the first time in 6 to 7 years. Now, people who were in the plant community before me have told me that in 2013 and 2014, plant prices for everything were really low. Really, really, really low. When we were in the height of the big wave, you'd have people say things like, I remember when Pink Princess was just $20, or I remember when Monstera albos were $150, and that was like cheap. And now we're at the point where Pink Princess are sometimes just free, and Monstera albos are $30 to $40, and Spiritus Sancti are being sold for $74, now at a lower point than people were at in 2014 and 2015. So we're at the first like little plant recession depreciation in almost a decade, which is actually really cool to be here for. I saw the rise. I mean, I thought plants were expensive when I got into them. Everything just... I wouldn't have been able to buy any plants if I didn't have people sending them to me for free, or just because they wanted exposure, or because I had other cool plants to trade, or my mom. She would buy them.
Well, I liked them too.
Mom would buy them and then we would split them.
Yeah.
Like with her Pink Princess that's back here. Little plant. I think it's really important to understand, and it's really ultimately comes down to super basic economics, which is that TLDR, why did plants become so cheap? First of all, it's only the plants that are easy to propagate, the plants that are like a caramel marble, gosh, and like congos, things that have incredibly tight internodal spacing. Anything that's really hard to propagate and hard to grow, still relatively expensive. Not anywhere near as much as it was before. It's 90% less expensive than it was, but still expensive in comparison to all of the other current plant prices. Too many people selling, not enough interest anymore. We had our classic flooding of the market moment. This made everything great for buyers. Obviously, I sound like your economics teacher. Competition is great for the buyer, but bad for the seller. And that's exactly what's happened. It's actually really unfortunate because unlike massive corporations being the seller and us trying to stick it to the man, you guys, so many people who are normal people who have invested tens of thousands of dollars into plant collecting. There are people who have spent $80,000, $90,000, you guys, on one plant to grow and propagate and sell, but it takes years in order to do that to as many plants as you would need to sell. You had huge sellers, like very popular sellers in these big Facebook groups, warning people in 2020 and 2021 to not get into it because it was not going to last. And when that was happening, everyone, including my own perception, is, oh, they don't want more sellers because if like we have more sellers, then plants are gonna get cheaper and these people won't make the same profit. In 2020, late 2020, early 2021, there was actually a Oblique sales group, specifically Oblique sales group. The sellers in that group decided to collectively stop selling Monstera Oblique Peru because we were watching it fall from $5,000. This was the first massive plant depreciation that we saw in the middle of the big wave. Monstera Oblique Peru cost $9,000, $10,000 when they first started hitting the market. Then they fell to $5,000, and then they fell to $4,000. Once they hit $2,000 to $1,000, they started falling fast. These plant sellers who had spent so much money, you guys, on these plants when they were expensive, were scared because, uh-oh, we're gonna lose all of our money. No! The message of them doing that went viral, and I actually made a video about it at the time when it happened. I'll link it in the description if you want to check it out. Instantly got reverted, and they started selling them again because everyone was like, bro, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, trying to gatekeep and make plants, like, prices go up again. I mean, it makes sense to them. If we stop flooding the market, the plants will stay the same price and we will all make more money, which is great for the sellers to collectively make more money. It's just hard because normally, you guys, when you think about sellers in business like this, making a lot of money, you think about huge businesses, but what you need to know is that the sellers who are losing all of their money are stay-at-home moms. and people of color, poor young people who are able to make some extra money, and they were making money off plants and then taking all the money they made off a sale, investing it into other plants, so they're constantly breaking even, but with the intention of getting a full return on investment and then double and tripling their profit originally, because now they're gonna have all these plants and the plants should stay expensive, so they should be able to make those things. So the people who are losing money, it's not insane businesses that we hate. Some of the people who were losing money were like super rich, but like they weren't a massive company. They were a mom or a dad or just people who didn't have kids, who didn't have any employees, and they were just doing it from their backyard. It's really sad when you think about it like that, because if you want to stick it to the man, you want to be sticking it to Amazon or I don't know, some other big stupid company, not Susan, who's 62 years old and spent her life savings on a bunch of plants and now lost all of her money and maybe is gonna lose her house. You know what I mean? It's not that cute. This is why it's interesting to me, because it's such a bizarre situation. And because it's so easy to do, you guys, plant collecting and growing is so easy. You can just do it in your house. You can do it at your office. It's a passive thing. You just spend a little bit of time, plant some plants, watch them grow, propagate them, watch them grow, go do other stuff. It happens passively. It's a very easy like side hustle or just way to make money off of your own business, because no one makes enough money to live anymore, and that is so cool. A lot of people are getting into this, and everyone was selling. You have hobby sellers who are like me. I mean, I wouldn't even call myself a seller anymore because I don't really sell my plants anymore at all. Then you have people who are like commercial sellers, which is like very small businesses. Then you have like professional sellers, you have private sellers, and then you have the big mass companies like Costa Farms and Urban Jungle and places like that that are massive multi-million, probably billion-dollar corporations. Because of the fact that everyone was able to sell too many plants, not enough people buying, especially after COVID hit. And this is the bizarre thing, because plants before COVID were popular. They were already kind of on the rise. You had YouTubers like Jenna Marbles and Bretman Rock and Connor Franta making videos about their plant collecting that they got into, and I actually got into plants because of Jenna's video. When everyone got their stimulus check and no one could go outside and no one could go do anything because everyone was on lockdown in the entire world all at once, everyone got into gardening. What was the one place, you guys, that remained open during lockdowns? Agricultural businesses, because they are not allowed to close. Same with grocery stores. They're considered an essential business because a lot of people grow their own food or they have their own livestock, and so you can't close businesses that are classified as agriculture because people need to be able to get their soil, their manure, their fertilizer, their pots, their like that stuff is essential to some people's survival. So because Home Depot and Lowe's and maybe your local plant shop, if they decided to stay open, were the only places people could go, a lot of people were going. And gardening, outdoor gardening, was way more popular in COVID during houseplants, but houseplants, they really hit a high. And after COVID started winding down and people started going back to work, the hobby pretty abruptly stopped after about a year for a lot of people. And people started selling their plants and moving on and doing other things with their life. That's when the sales kind of started to stop, but it's taken about 2 years since that happened for things to brutally, if you care about prices falling, I don't, I love them. I bought a 8-leaf Monstera albo for $90. I am loving this market. But again, like I said, it does make me worried for my friends who own plant shops, right? We had this huge excitement and then now this huge crash, a massive flooding of the market at the same time that a lot of people stopped liking plants because they no longer had the time, because they had to go back to work. So you can see why this is like the perfect storm for a market completely falling the fuck apart. You've got more people than literally ever before in history, and at the same time as all of these people getting into selling, probably over half of the people who were buying are now no longer even doing plants, or they're doing them on the side because they just don't have time. And here's where the confusion starts to settle in, and this is where things for me get the most interesting, because everything up until now has been me giving you some houseplant history, which is another series I'd like to bring back and do more videos on. We're gonna talk about the 3 different categories of what I think are sellers right now and how people have been coping with or lack thereof of these new prices. So you have your local Facebook, Etsy, hobby, not even sellers, people who just post on Facebook when they have a plant they want to sell, or maybe they're selling some plants so they can afford a bigger plant, you know, something like that. These people are happily dropping their prices because they don't care. They don't give a shit. They're probably like me. honestly, I would put myself into this category where it's like, well, it would have been nice to sell my plant for a little bit more money and get some money from it, but ultimately I don't care because it's not my livelihood. This is not how I make money to survive, and I think it's fun and probably honestly better that plants are more accessible now. That's how I think, and that is how I really feel like most people who are in my shoes think. You are generally happy for the new accessibility. Super expensive plants now costing almost nothing at all in comparison. I mean, you're seeing Monstera albos and Aureas sell more than Sancties right now, which is fucking crazy. Then you have your second group of people who I would specify as specialty collectors who aren't exactly big businesses. And I would classify these as your local boutique plant shops, people who got into plants because of this big wave. Because there are plant shops that have existed, like for example, A Succulent Day in my city. She has been a plant truck. She was a mobile plant truck instead of like a food truck. She literally had a plant truck, and she's been doing that since like 2013. So she's someone who's just always been into plants, right? But you have people who just got into them, like just now, just started their business, dude. They bought a building, they took out loans, they've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars of their loan money into plants, which have plummeted. Like, it's truly tragic for these small local sellers, in my opinion. Like, I am so devastated for them. But these are who I would call your specialty collectors, and these might also be your online sellers like Bros with Hose. Pretty much any of your online or local small businesses that started as a result or just before the plant wave. You have these collectors who are dropping prices a little bit, but they're still coping by not really dropping them enough to compete with the private market. And then you have your big businesses who are hardly dropping to not dropping at all because they're coping really fucking hard, because a lot of these businesses have put a lot of money, you guys, an unreal amount of money that you can't even comprehend, that I can't even comprehend. And now they are going to lose all of it. It's going to be a long time if they can even keep in business because plants aren't selling enough. So they're coping by not dropping their prices, not selling their plants because they can't compete. Your cute little sellers like me who aren't even really sellers, they're just kind of like hobbyists, happily dropping prices, probably happy that the prices are coming down. Then you got your specialty sellers, which is like kind of the next step up of like very small businesses, but still a business or an LLC or something. They're probably not so happy that plants are coming down in price, but you know, hey, it's better for the community. More people are buying because plants are cheaper, even though they're making less of a profit, and they're dropping their prices enough to still be able to sell and stay in business, but not enough to compete with the private market. And then you have your very specialty bougie plant shops, whomstv are hardly dropping their prices, if any at all. And there's only a couple of those that I've seen, but those people are fucking coping. And then I do want to note that in our specialty businesses category, our small businesses category, not hobby sellers, there is a couple of these who have not had to drop their prices very low because they have amassed an audience of people who will still pay more money for their plants because it is a XYZ plant. One of those companies is the Rare Plant Fairy. They haven't really dropped their prices too much. I mean, in comparison, everyone has dropped prices in comparison to what they were, because otherwise nothing would sell for $5,000. Oh my God, that was the craziest thing I ever saw. It was a $10,000 5-foot Monstera albo. It's just like, it was surreal when I saw it, and it's sold. I think the Rare Plant Fairy, and I think that Botanicas already had cheap plants. In comparison to every other business, Botanicas has always sold their plants for an affordable price. And they can do that because so many people buy from them that they can price certain plants lower and add a little bit more money onto the more expensive plants because people are gonna buy their expensive plants. And they still have, and they always will, because Botanicas is an amazing fucking company, and I will shout that till the end of time. Started by a immigrant, a first generation immigrant. She is so cool. I fucking love Anya. What I'm trying to say, I'm getting distracted, is that there are some businesses that have not had to drop prices because they were lucky to establish themselves so firmly during the big wave and slightly before. Because of this confusion, what has resulted? Our question that we were answering in this video is, why are there so many microcultures of plant pricing on Etsy, on Facebook? It used to be, okay, America prices, here's America prices, unless you live in Florida. Things are a little cheaper in Florida, or maybe Texas or something, but American plants, expensive. Canadian plants, even more expensive. If you live in like the Netherlands, you're fucking lucky because you have the cheapest plants in the entire world, it feels like. And then you have EU plants. It's like these plants were about as expensive as American plants, but a little bit cheaper. And those were kind of your microcosms. And you'd see minor dips in ranges, from country to country, sometimes state to state, but by such a tiny margin. Country to country, you would see some margin dips. You'd have plants in Oregon be a little bit more expensive than plants in Florida just because it's more difficult to grow. But right now what we have is a lot of microcosms, and our question is, why are these microcosms here? Why are plants on Plant Purge 2.0 so much cheaper than on like Time to Splurge and Purge, any other Facebook group that I've actually fucking seen? Cheaper than my local group. I mean, this is where you see people selling Monstera albos for like 20 or 30 bucks. Free Monstera obliqua with a purchase. It's a little add-on. You can just tack on a Monstera obliqua Peru, a real one. $78 Spirit of Sanctis. Like, what's going on? What I have deducted, the answer I have come up with is that because of the copium that these different tiers of people are on, hobby sellers, private specialty sellers, and then large sellers, because of people's reluctance to drop prices, we have seen different pockets and microcosms of pricing cultures develop, which I think is really interesting. For example, like if anyone was like, I need to go buy a plant, where do I buy it? I would say literally Plant Purge USA 2.0. That is the best place to buy plants right now from what I've seen. By far the cheapest. There's a lot of really good sellers on there who are purging like every single day. There's 1 and 2 hour plant auctions where you're seeing people get a whole plant of variegated Spa Peru for $30 because no one did the fucking auction. And they start at like 0 and they have $1 bid increments. And gosh, I watched a white princess, a huge white princess that was gorgeous, sell for $15 yesterday. No. These Monstera albos selling for 20 bucks, like big plants, because no one's doing these auctions because people already have them or they just don't want one. These different pricing cultures and microcosms, I think, come into existence because of different groups' lack of wanting to drop prices. And I think there's some groups that people have gathered in where they're willing to spend more money. And I think that there's others where they're selling plants for really cheap because they either want to or they don't need to sell for super expensive because they have so much inventory. But I think that these three different people, like these houseplant hobbyists, are selling plants for the cheapest. So the best place to buy plants right now is from someone like you, someone who doesn't have a business, someone who just collects because it's fun and pretty and makes you feel good inside. Buy from someone like that because they're gonna be selling their plants for really cheap because it's not their fucking livelihood. The next best people to buy plants from is your individual online boutique and local plant shops. People who are dropping prices enough to sell their plants. They're affordable enough, but if you want to support your local businesses, I think that that's really important. And the worst people right now, in terms of price, not in terms of product quality, and I need to be really clear about that because sometimes buying cheaper plants is not always better, but I've personally feel like I've found sellers that are pretty solid. The most expensive, worst for your budget place to buy plants right now is from these huge online specialty sellers who have hardly dropped their prices because they have truly poured so much of their life savings into obtaining these plants. And I don't fucking blame them, to be honest. Like, I'm not sitting here like, price shaming. I'm not price shaming anyone at all for anything. I never price shame. What I am doing is having a discussion on prices and why they're like this because it's so confusing. Because we went from having a common price structure, okay, for like 5 years. From like 2019, 4 years, for about 4 years, we had a common price structure. Everyone knew pretty much how expensive an albo was, how expensive variegated Peru was, how expensive a Sancti was, Gloriosum. Everyone knew the prices. Now, who fucking knows? I just think it's really interesting because I think that instead of before where we had these microcosms of countries and maybe states, we now have places where people have gathered specifically because there's different people selling there. And there's so many sellers on the market right now still that we've just seen this like coagulation of like affordable, but still relatively expensive. That's my theory. That's my answer and the end of this video. I think that micro pricing cultures exist because of some sellers' reluctance to drop prices and people staying with them, and other people's lack of inhibition to drop their prices. It's just like, yeah, I'll sell Spirit of Sanctis for 70 bucks. Who fucking gives a shit? I don't. I already made my ROI. I feel like that's why. And I think that that's kind of fun because it's like you can really pick how much you want to pay for a plant. And especially if you're patient, you guys, prices are still dropping. I said in a video not too long ago that I feel like they're starting to go back up because I'm seeing Gloriosums specifically become more expensive again. And I'm still seeing them become more expensive, but nothing else is. A lot of plants are still way, 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 way cheap and only getting cheaper. I don't know what the hell is going on with Gloriosum, but the rest of everything else is really, really affordable. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any similar thoughts, feelings, concerns, questions. I feel like I'm kind of onto something here with this, but maybe I'm totally missing the mark. Maybe there's a completely other reason why these little microcosms are existing of little pricing cultures. Yeah, let's talk about it in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much, Zimp, for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to follow Zimp, you guys, on Instagram. Check them out. Check out my link to my favorite glasses page at the top of my comment section, in my description, and then also in my link tree, which is farther down in my description. And make sure to use code Ashley at checkout for 50% off frames and 20% off lenses. That's gonna be it. Thanks for watching my dinky little cute little fun little video on youtube.com/@plantingashley. I will see you guys in the next houseplant section with more fun plant tea thoughts. Let me know plant tea topics you want me to talk about. It can be anything. I have a lot of ideas, especially lately. The plant community is just so different right now than it was before. And I took quite a big break from posting and interacting with the community, so it's fun seeing all of the new things and all the big changes. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next houseplant section. Goodbye.